said tonight by everyone that's come to me, brought to mind, and I've been keeping this in my mind for some time. In fact, this is a copy of the 5 simple prayers to have, hold, and cherish. The number 1 prayer on here is, I have and hold hope of being able to know I'm walking into the kitchen or down a country road, being here, awake, present to myself enough, not just be aware of thoughts, feelings calling for my attention, the temptation to identify with them, become a captive of imagination, including these words. I have this posted on my kitchen, copy in my car, carry a copy with me. I've just realized all this time holding this, I don't even know what hope. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the students who have joined me this evening here in the classroom at the Foundation, and good evening to those of you online who are joining us for our Wednesday night Discovery Wednesday class with Guy Finley. I was just thinking right before I came up here about the fact that this is the eve before Thanksgiving, and just again, much that I am grateful for, and especially grateful for these opportunities that we have to learn something together, to share something with others from around the country, the world, literally, and to grow in our understanding together. And so I'm glad that you've joined us, and glad that the students in the room have joined me as well. If you're new here, those of you online, our agenda on Wednesday night is, in a moment, Guy will give about a 60-minute talk on the topic you see below you on the screen. We'll take a short break, and then we'll come back from the break and have an open discussion in which both the students here live in the classroom and those of you online can participate in the discussion. You can send comments in, you can write questions, they get relayed to me and to Guy, and they are part of what we use to learn and grow together. So I hope you will participate, and I hope we will participate as well and grow together. Finally, if you have a cell phone in the room, just please check, as always, to make sure you've turned it off before we continue. And I think we are ready to get started. So I will introduce the class just by reading the title and the topic that we're exploring today. The title of the talk is Escape the Invisible Prison Most People Pay to Live In.
Good evening to you intrepid souls. And to all of you who are joining us wherever you are in the world, whatever day or time, I'm glad you're here. It's the eve of Thanksgiving, and we are running a small group of students here. A number have taken off for parts unknown. But what that means is when we get to our portion of the class where I ask you to participate, several of you are going to have to be 3 people, which most of you are already 2, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Escape the invisible prison most people pay to live in. That went dark. Is that supposed to be dark? Or we are adjusting? Something happened.
Something with the TV.
It's okay
though. Not on good web dark, it's just in the room.
Okay. Something is up with our big screen, and I want to make sure that you all are able to see or at least hear what it is that's going on. So, again, the topic is escape the invisible prison most people pay to live in. Now, if I was going to ask you, how many of you think for a moment that you pay to live in a prison? You would think, that's ludicrous, sir. I'm spending most of my pay to escape the prison. So I want to show you tonight something that we've been looking at in some depth together about how we are, without knowing it, complicit in a certain institutionalization of ourselves, where we struggle under a constant set of circumstances that we have basically no idea we struggle under, because most of our struggles are to constantly change or otherwise escape our circumstances. And we don't understand anything about the true nature of what our circumstances are. Meaning, what is the condition that I look out and see and then try to figure out what to do with? And we're going to look at that quite deeply together, so that I hope we can, as I said on Sunday, begin to understand some of these thoughts. If you remember, one of them we said was that this person made a study of people that were dying and what they regretted. Do you remember that? And that one of the biggest, if not major, regret of most of the people was that they wished that they had spent less time trying to prove themselves and more time struggling to be themselves. And I want to visit that for a moment with you. Why would it be a struggle to be myself? Really, it makes no sense. The deer that visit me on my property, they don't struggle to be themselves. Frankie the turkey, he's definitely himself. Why is it a struggle for me to be myself? And it is a struggle. When you think of it, nothing should be or could be more natural, and yet it's so hard. What is the difficulty? Now, I know, here's the first difficulty, is that you think while I'm saying this that, well, that's what I am. I'm myself. No. If you were yourself, you couldn't punish yourself or anyone else. It would be impossible. If you were yourself, you couldn't hurt this world. You couldn't injure others through the acts and deeds that are the constant companions in your relationship, especially when you have conflict with other people. And it's been useless, if you're honest at all. I've spent so many years trying to figure out how can I get past this strange stumbling block in my life where I always feel as if in one way or another I've run into something, a problem, a person, a situation. And for the life of me, all I know how to do in that moment is to revisit everything that I've done 1,000 times. I don't know how to connect the experiences that I don't want with the consciousness that creates it. I don't know how to connect the experiences that I don't want with the consciousness that creates it, because we believe, all of us, that the condition we don't want, the conflict in our life in any given moment, is because of something or someone acting against us and producing this pain that all we know how to do with is struggle. So I don't know if what we have the capacity to do. If I ask for the key lesson, can it come up at least online?
It is online, not in the classroom.
Okay, well, pay attention. We're having a little tech difficulty here. Let me read the key lesson. It sets the stage for everything we're going to do together. And there it is. Would that it were up there so you could see it, but you in the room here, you can always download it later. The importance of any given moment is inseparable from whatever may be the momentary sense of self responsible for lending it that significance. If we are to have any hope of realizing what is actually important in this life, which is to see through the illusion of a separate self, then we must be honest enough to admit the following truth. What really makes one moment seem more important than any other cannot be separated from how important it makes us feel. There is this strange, incessant, unseen need that we have all been conditioned to believe is our need, and that when that need of mine meets the need of yours, and that need is that you see me as important and validate the way I see myself as being important, what happens when two people demand that the other see the other as important? One of us suffers, yes or no? We don't connect at all how much fear, anxiety, pain, anger, we don't connect it even remotely with the idea that every moment and relationship has a single purpose, and that is to confirm and support this idea I have about myself as being an important person. You're raised in a world where, quite literally, even in some ways, even the most primitive of cultures, to believe that being seen and respected as being important is tantamount to the whole reason for being alive. Powers, possessions, authority of any kind whatsoever is the great goal of humanity in one form or another, because the more I can accumulate, the more I will be seen in this world as being important. And so that underneath this idea of being seen as important runs all of the things that we call greed and all of the forms of fear that are connected with anyone or any moment that comes along in the smallest way to challenge something that I am identified within myself, by which I believe this is what makes me important. And then because I believe it makes me important, I have to spend my life doing what? Protecting it. It just never stops. From the smallest thing all the way to what we would call the largest. And in the scheme of things, they're both the same. What we call the smallest and the largest. And all of that's predicated on what? What's the basis of this deep conditioning? Can you see to date what we're saying? Yes? What's the difference between this belief that I am important and understanding the importance of life itself? Understanding the importance of life, not how do I prove that I'm important in this life. Do you understand the difference? You think that they're the same. We believe that being seen as important is the importance of life. And we're going to prove it. It's evident. But we don't know the importance of life. Because, for one thing, if I knew the importance of life, I wouldn't spend my life trying to be important. Because life in itself and my relationship with it, as best a man or a woman can be awake and present to everything that they are being given, means that the importance of their life is now connected to their awareness of what is taking place and being given moment to moment. That's what's important, because everything is born out of what we are being given moment to moment. But to us, what's important is what we can take from every single moment that will prove to us that we are the way we've imagined ourselves to be, and that's important. Can you see this it's in the largest and smallest of things. And what a difference it would make if I were to understand that. If I understood that there was a significant difference between living for the importance of life versus trying to be important in life, I would meet every moment completely differently. Wouldn't I? All right, so I'm going to break into my introduction just to say one last comment about it, and then I have a doctor's story, and since we're a small group, you all are going to have to be very, very present, okay? How long have you been trying to get people to see you as being important? And the truth of the matter is, you see, it's not you that's trying to do it. It is our culture. It is the culture of the world now. This world worships important people. And because we think that we want to be special in the eyes of the world, everything about our life is predicated on this idea: if I can acquire some kind of special privilege, power, or possession, then I will be important, and then people will want to serve me. I won't have the difficulties that I do now. And yet, and part of our meeting, and I know that it rubs so many people the wrong way, what have I gained? What does it profit a man to have won the whole world and to lost his soul? Because it's evident, we may not want to see it, it's in vain. Try to see this. I don't care who you're talking about, and I don't know who you knew growing up. I know in my past, I spent time with what would be called the upper echelon, the top 1% of the world. And I can tell you that nobody was more afraid than those people. But the key here is that we run into a moment where suddenly we're shown, you know what? You can't change this moment that just happened. You can't control. This is out of your, it's gone. And then like that, what happens to us? We simply shift, our attention goes on to the next thing we need to do what? To shore up whatever it was that took our importance from us. Whether it's the smallest thing between a man and a woman and a family matter, or it's a person sitting at the head of a Fortune 500 company. Fix it. Fix what? Fix what I am identified with that I believe makes me important. Please? Ready? Nice story. Nice deep breath. We're going to the doctor's office. If you've never joined us before, I use this particular vehicle to express very specific ideas. Each and all of them are connected to what amounts to really our wanting to be a different kind of human being. The good doctor represents wisdom, represents actually a part of ourselves. Ever so quickly, when you've had an epiphany of some kind, you wouldn't be here if you haven't. You have an epiphany of some kind, and suddenly the light goes on, and all of a sudden, so much that was inexplicable to you before is suddenly explained. Well, from where came that explanation? It wasn't there a moment ago, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, that's extraordinary. How did I not see that before? And the answer is that the teacher, the good doctor, the healer, call it what you will, is already in this consciousness. It's not separate. It's already a part of who you really are. It's there. That's why when you actually learn something true and you see it as such, it isn't that you go, oh my God, that's so new. It's like, I can't believe that I haven't seen that for all of these years. That's so strange. I wonder where it was. So the idea of we are the ones we've been waiting for, as the Native Americans would say, means that within you, within me, is the good doctor, and he's just waiting for you to come visit. And you know what the best part of visiting that doctor is?
It's free.
It's free. You don't need Medicare. You need a little self-care. You just need a wish to understand what you have yet to understand. Why am I so easily angered? Why am I so instantaneously impatient? What is this intolerance that I have? How come so many things seem to me like that's the most inconvenient thing in the world? Why are you doing this? You know those thoughts? So Christine, our hero, who happens to be down in San Diego at the moment, our character named Christine, she goes to see the good doctor because, as with every other visit, she's a warrior. She wants to know what's going on. She doesn't shun. The doctor's been rough on her from time to time, because it's always tough, isn't it, when I understand. Well, the problem is when I don't understand, and then suddenly I see, God, I must have been an idiot not to be able to recognize that. Well, she goes knowing that it's going to be a tough row to hoe, and there she is, and she's saying to him, one way or the other, I don't know what to do with myself. I've been visiting you for like 4,000 years, and it seems like I'm getting worse. Well, we know that's not true, don't we, Christine? So let's stop. Let's not go down that road. You're just seeing things now that you never saw before in the same way. That's all it is. It's not worse. What's actually happening is you're better. Because now you can see things that you couldn't see before, but the parts of you that have been hiding what you need to learn are not happy that your interior eyes are starting to open. So can we get past that, Christine? And Christine says, yes. What's going on? Well, I'm not sure where to start, but I'll just go with it. She said, first, about 4 days ago, we had a family business meeting, a gathering. It's always to talk about the family and the things that are involved in family. And they were going through some important stuff. It had some influence on my life. And I'm sitting there while everybody's talking, and I'm trying to, like you've taught me to be, I need to try to be patient and watch myself, because I was getting anxious. And then what happened? Well, I kept waiting for somebody to ask me my opinion. And, well, nobody asked. Nobody asked. Imagine that. Well, what happened when nobody asked? She said, well, I got to the end and everybody's getting ready to leave. I said, wait a minute. Don't you want to hear what I have to say? Everybody sat down and kind of looked grumpy at me. And then I said what I had to say, and everybody said, okay, see you later. And everybody left the table. Not one person made a comment about what I considered to be the most significant part of that meeting. He said, what happened to that? Well, what do you think happened? She said, I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about my brother and my sister and the idiots that I live with, and what the heck is wrong with people? Don't they realize genius my mind just wouldn't shut up. Do you ever have a night like that? Yes or no? Yes. Well, what happened after that? Well, next day I was at the market, because Thanksgiving was coming. Real-time story. And I was shopping, and I bought a case of wine, and I put it under my shopping cart, on that little shelf there under the cart. And then she said, and then I was checking out, I forgot to point out the case of wine, and I started to wheel the cart away, and bells and whistles went off, and everybody was going, ah, like that. I couldn't bear it, and the cashier had the gall to intimate that I was trying to leave with the case of wine. I would never do that, although it has occurred to me. I was so insulted. I lost it right there in the supermarket. I stormed out without my groceries after paying for them, and then I was too embarrassed to go back for them. Well, that's pretty rough stuff, Christine. Anything else? Oh, yeah. After I left the market, I stopped on my way home to get something to eat because I didn't have any food. And I went into my favorite restaurant, and I sat there. I ordered my food, and then she said, and then I swear to God, I waited for an hour for my check. An hour. I sat there waiting, tapping my fingers, thinking to myself, be patient, be patient, be patient. You're a loving person, Thanksgiving. I'm grateful. And finally, I just couldn't take it anymore. I walked over to the manager, and I kind of put I said, what kind of place is this? I've been sitting there for an hour. And he looked at me and said, ma'am, I don't want to argue with you, but your waiter took a break 10 minutes ago because there was a family emergency, and you've not been at that table more than 10 minutes, and you could have waved your hand easily at me. She said, well, that was all I had to hear him say. In other words, he was intimating that I was responsible for this period of time that was no 10 minutes by God. And I just sat there and I just flipped out, told him I'm never coming back again. And then I hated myself for saying that because it's the only restaurant that serves good Thai food. Whew. Anything else? Well, you can imagine how I slept that night. Yeah, I can. Well, the next day, we had a meeting of senior executives on the planning team at the corporation that I work for. And our team would work very hard. There's 5 of us. And we had put together an immensely successful plan that we knew was going to knock everybody's socks off. We were going to get raises as far as I was concerned. She said, so we went through the whole plan, and the CEO just sat there and kept nodding his head. And nobody at the table said, by God, that's genius. They just kind of said, okay, we'll look into that. And no more did they say, we'll look into that, which already infuriated me. But Nolan, that idiot, you know I've spoken about him before, he actually had the audacity to suggest to the team there that he was the one that came up with the idea. She said, do you know what went through me when that happened? He said, I can only imagine. She said, I thought I was going to have a stroke. And you think you have a hard life. Now, I just described to you, whether you know it or not, 24 hours in your life. You may not have the individual circumstances, but surely you can put this together and see some of this relative to yourself, yes or no. She says to him, Doctor, please can you help me? I mean, these moments, look, I'm not going to lie, they were challenging, but what I made out of them in my head, everything about my reaction seems so out of proportion. How many of you know out of proportion reactions? What's wrong with me? He said, first of all, we've been through this too. There's nothing actually wrong with you, Christine. Where you're wrong is that you haven't been interested enough to study these symptoms and connect them with the source that obviously is with you wherever you go, because you're the one that keeps having these explosions when anything doesn't meet your expectation. Well, what is it? What's going on with me? Whew. You ready? I think I can answer it without any examination because there's only 35 minutes left in the talk. You're suffering from a very painful syndrome, Christine. It's a geez, oh sigh. Yeah. Hold on. Geez, oh sigh. Right? It's a play on words too, isn't it? Oh, geez, oh sigh. Oh, Jesus, sigh. And what does she say when he tells her that? Boy, you don't seem very involved. Yes. Is it fatal? Am I going to live? Because it sounds, oh, geez, oh, sigh. I mean, that's terrible. She said, what am I going to do? What is it? Ready? Write down the letters. The letters are A-G-E-S-O-S-I. A-G-E-S-O-S-I. And Jesus I stands for a greatly exaggerated sense of self-importance. A greatly exaggerated sense of self-importance. Oh, mother of pearl. What a nightmare. And what a contradiction. We're brought up in this world. I don't know about you, my mother and my father, Time Magazine, Man of the Year, all that. I mean, man, I want to be important. I want people when I walk in to go, Mr. Finley, you're here. Thank God the world wasn't whole until you walked in that door and graced us with your presence. This is an exaggeration, but inwardly, whatever extent it's true, this is pretty much the way we see it. And by the way, this is especially good talk for those of you who are going to go spend time with your family tomorrow. A Jesus-I, a greatly exaggerated sense of self-importance. So I want to ask you now, because we're going to make a list before we get into this prescription, because he's going to give her a prescription. Do you want a prescription for a Jesus-I? Do any of you even suspect that you suffer from a greatly exaggerated sense of importance? Isn't it amazing how I can't even let some people finish the sentence they're saying to me without making sure that they understand not only is what I'm saying more important than what they're saying, but this is right from the mouth of God. If you listen carefully, you will be healed just by listening to me. Let's bring up the list. What are some of the ways you either seen yourself or someone else cling painfully and ultimately in vain to a sense of feeling important? What are some of the ways you've either seen yourself or someone else, we can start like that if we have to, cling painfully to a sense of feeling important? Now, before I ask you to participate online, and especially in the room, I'm going to, as I like to say, prime the pump. Here are some examples where a person suffers because of a certain sense of wanting to feel important. When am I impatient with another human being? When am I impatient with any other human being? Isn't impatience a sign of I am important and you are taking too slow in my talk, too long in my company? Yes or no? How many of you get irritated when people inconvenience you? Yes or no? I mean, do you ever get upset with traffic? Just the simplest thing. Why? Look, this is, I'm supposed to be someplace when I'm supposed to be there and all this traffic. It's an inconvenience. Now, maybe you didn't get the memo from the traffic department of the city that you live in, but I am the most important person on the road. Let's make no doubt about it. Now, you may think that's silly, but how many of you have certain thoughts or words or physical gestures, perhaps, that you want to make towards people that are inconveniencing you on the road? Yes or no? How about this one? I made the whole list, but I'm going to bring you in a moment. Do you ever find yourself on the defensive? Anybody defensive here? Why am I? You've brought me something. This is really, you want to talk about a Jesus, I had greatly exaggerated said before. God forbid that you should suggest in any way whatsoever that I don't understand what you're talking about. Or that somehow or other you're not doing it right. How many of you like when people suggest to you that you're not approaching something right? Do you go, oh, that's beautiful, thank you, man? Or are you instantaneously resistant to pretty much anyone or anything that comes along and demands of you something that in that moment you're not prepared? How about simple, this one? Are you ever aggressive with people? Standing in line at the supermarket, do you ever hear yourself talking about the cashier when she's not going fast enough? All of these examples are examples of a Jesus-I, aren't they? All right, over to you, Patricia.
Waiting a long time to get an appointment somewhere.
Oh, why do I have to wait 14 years to see my doctor? I mean, if think, or how about this? I tested this personally. They say, you get to this appointment, and they're pointing that finger right over the phone, You get to this appointment 20 minutes early. 20 minutes before the doctor is ready to see the doctor. Okay, you're there 20 minutes early. You're sitting in the waiting room 30 minutes later. Then they usher you into some little room that stinks like old paint, and you sit for another 30 minutes. The doctor walks in and nobody says anything about, sorry, that you just spent 2 hours waiting for me. What comes up inside of you? Yeah, you don't understand how important I am. Kate, I'm looking for where I see the list, and again, I don't know what have I done wrong? Oh, there it is. I got it. Joan says, oh yeah, this is a big one. A Jesus eye. What is a Jesus eye? A greatly exaggerated sense of self-importance. No one appreciates me. That's from Joan in Buffalo. Carl, I shouldn't have to wait in this long line. Telling myself I'm just a loner or outsider and no one pays it. How about nobody, my mother used to do this to me. Poor Guysy, nobody loves him. God, did that irritate me? Nobody loves him. Oh no. Now, why would that irritate poor Guysy? Because he measures his importance by the amount of attention that he gets. Isn't that how we measure our importance in life? If I get a lot of attention, I'm important. And therefore, I must do something to get attention. Now I'm talking to you about why you see people walk around with long, sad sack faces. Why you see people standing in the corner feeling sorry for themselves. If they can't get attention from you, they'll get attention from themselves, and then they'll be important in their own eyes as measured by the amount of pain they're in while they do it. So I punish myself in pursuit of being and feeling important. Do you see this with me? Who else in the room? Terry.
Trying to control others.
Very painful. Anytime I'm trying to control your behavior, it's because something you're doing is threatening in one way or another, something I'm identified with, and ultimately it all comes down to this sense of myself as important or doing what's critical. Anybody else? John.
Speaking loudly over someone else.
Speaking loudly over, this isn't, you mean when people are so rude that they talk over you, John? Yeah, we always put that, do you see that little flip he did? Not me doing this, but when other people do this to me. On the board, Claudia, that's a big one. Feeling misunderstood. Rebecca, stating I have an engineering background. I am currently a female project manager. Do you know how the world is cultivating conflict? Do you have any idea? It's not cultivating equity. You're insane if you think the world is cultivating equity. It's trying to create the idea of being important through what is called equitable in this world, and through what we call equitable in this world, which is always presumptive to power or possession. Then if you don't respect my position and my power, then you are not equitable and you are against me and whatever it is that I believe in. John.
Along the same lines, acting like a victim.
That's a big one. Whenever somebody doesn't applaud, approve, or give me what I need to hold this vision of myself, I'm a victim. I'm immediately turned into a victim. And only someone who is important as I am can suffer that much over being made a victim. And I am not saying that we are not living in a world where everybody victimizes everybody. You think you're the one being victimized? Stand in line, and if you have the courage, have somebody videotape your face while you're waiting in line, so you could see the contortions that go through your mind as thought manipulates the face about why this is taking so long. Should I jump to the other line? How come this is so expensive? It just goes on forever. Rob, yes, the need to dominate a conversation. Nick says, this is a big one. How many of you love it when people are dismissive of you? That was one of Christine's rubs, wasn't it? Oh, I just love it when you treat me like I'm nothing. And then when you treat me like nothing, what do I do? What goes on inside of me? It's binary. I either go instantaneously into silent defensiveness, where I judge you for having no character, or I become aggressive and try to prove to you through what? What is pushing me to be aggressive so that you're not dismissive of me? What's pushing me? Pain. So pain is proving to me my importance. This is the heart of the talk we're going to get to here. Do you understand? Let me go back to the board. Julie, Scarlet and Gone with the Wind to Melanie. In contrast to Melanie, I have often wished that I was a lot less like Scarlet and more like Melanie. Yeah. Okay. Steve, the person driving in front of me is 3 car lengths ahead. He should only be 2. Let us know what freeway you're on, Steve, and we will not be there. Heidi, being impatient, defensive, aggressive, inconvenienced, feeling misunderstood. Juan, people patronize. Oh, man. Don't you patronize. You talking to me? Don't you patronize me. Do you know who you're talking to? I know almost everything about anyone and all moments without having to think about it. Yes or no? A couple more, Patricia. Eric. Oh, yeah. Eric said name dropping. Don't you love it when you're with people and they subtly let you know, listen, how important they are because of who or what they know or where they're going. I know a man when I play golf, whenever I see him, the first words out of his mouth are, I just got back from some exotic destination. He doesn't say hello. How's just in Zoto? Just in Zoto. That's the first one. Now, why is that poor man like? And by the way, he's an immensely wealthy man. Why is he like that? Because he has no sense of what the importance of life is. He only knows how to feel important when others look at him and go, oh, wow, that's unbelievable. Because then he feeds off of your jealousy. He feeds off your wish that only because you don't say it. I thought it myself. Why don't you invite me one of these times to go with you? That goes on, doesn't it? There's bragging about this. I got to go on. All right. We have to make a transition. So we've made this long list. It might be under the heading of a bitter medicine to swallow, but it heals. And we've just looked at it, and I asked you, well, what's the most important thing in the world to you? What's the most important thing in the world to you? Please don't when I was formulating how I would bring you into these ideas, and I thought, well, if I ask them what's the most important thing in the world to them, I know what everyone would say if I hadn't led into the talk with this material. Being loving, waking up, being kind, being patient, being supportive. All of the things that I would say are the most important to me. Did I miss any, incidentally? Anybody?
Being comfortable.
Now, being comfortable, that's a pretty big one. What are the most important? There wouldn't be one thing that I wouldn't say that wouldn't be connected to the importance of how I feel when I identify with the image of myself as being someone who wants those things to be most important. Yes or no? Do you understand? Long sentence. Bottom line is, what am I? What am I in that moment when you're dismissive to me? Is the most important thing to me my kindness? How about when suddenly you've accused me of something and I'm on the defensive? Is my most important thing in life to be peaceful in that moment? Is that the most important thing? We could go through that entire list. And if we were honest, we could see that I say the most important thing in life to me is to be a spiritual man, to have a relationship with God or Christ, to practice Dharma. You fill in the blanks. Doesn't matter what path you've said you're on. And I tell you that the most important thing in the world to you presently as we are isn't what we identify with. The most important thing to us is that we're identified with something that makes us feel important. And the proof that it doesn't make us important is that anything and everyone can challenge it at the drop of a hat. Isn't that true? Where's my clock? So what do you think? What does this mean to you? How does it apply to your daily life? To waking up in the morning, sitting in your chair, getting in your car, going to work? How does the fact of, and can you see this, yes or no, there is this incredible gulf that exists between how I see myself and what I think is important, and the fact that underneath the identity and the images connected to it, there is another self altogether that cares only for whatever gives it a sense of importance in the moment. And there is an immense gap, isn't there, between these two things? Which is the real one? This is why the medicine is bitter. Which is the real one? The real one is what I value, what I do. That is what is real in the moment. Because I can say all day long that what I value above all else is God, truth, love, life. I value the importance of life because I see life as being this moment-to-moment revelation of my possibilities, and that's what I want to put first, because there's revelation, there's integration, and then you can go through all of them, the montage of spiritual ideas, and then you get in your car and it doesn't start. Or the technology breaks down right when you need it the most. And then what is it that I value? What is it that my actions and what I embrace, what does that tell me about what I value? What do I value? What is it that I value in that moment? My sense of self. And the strange thing about valuing my sense of self, but believing that my values are somehow more, what's the word I want? That I am somehow or other above and beyond these common values. How do I explain fits of anger? How do I explain a mind that just won't set down an enemy? How do I explain that to myself? And the answer is, if we're honest, I can't. But I always do. I guess it's coming up pretty quick now, our special December weekend. We call it a weekend of wisdom. I'm going to refer to something a few times during that series of talks that I will touch on just so briefly now. Because we're asking ourselves, what's the solution? That's it. Not what has to happen. Because it's clear something that I don't know presently, let alone how to instrument. What has to happen that I start to realize that in spite of all of the glory that I want to give myself as a human being for the things that I say are important to me, climate, my actions speak so other than that. And not to be ignored is that in these actions that are contrary to the identity that I have means that I am almost never not in conflict with life. Because I think of myself and the importance of the things that I attest here, and that image is always running into something that challenges that identity of myself. And the only thing I know to do when the identity of myself as loving and true and important, when something runs into that, all I know to do is what? All I know to do is to save my sense of importance by finding someone or something to blame. by hoping that tomorrow I'll be able to finally get past this incredible sense of importance that I didn't even give it to myself. So there is this saying, I think if I was going to say what are my 3 or 4 favorite sayings in the world, maybe the one by Rumi, that somewhere out beyond wrongdoing and right doing there's a field, I'll meet you there. And then very much connected to that, I never realized it till I did this Rabbi Hillel, an old Jewish rabbi long ago, he wrote this little, like a kohen. You wouldn't think a rabbi, a Jewish man, would be like a Buddha, but true mystics are true mystics regardless of the name they have for themselves. And he said, if I'm not for myself, who's going to be? On the other hand, if I'm only for myself, what am I? And then he wrote, if not now, then when? If I'm not for myself, who's going to be? If I'm not for obtaining some position, power, authority in this world, if I'm not doing that, who's going to do it for me? The assumption being, of course, that it's mandatory that I achieve that, but he's saying that because in this consciousness, it is mandatory to us. We thrive, we feed, we require some form of respect at some level, even if it's just from our dog or our cat. If I'm not for myself, who's going to be for me? And you can see that very much the way the mind works, isn't it? But then he throws in this thing on, but if I'm just for myself, what am I? So what he was saying is that here's this part of my consciousness, and it is so filled with the idea of being important that it's outlined all the possibilities, and it's spent its life trying to acquire those things that would prove it to be what it imagines. That's one side. But on the other side, if that's all I am, what am I? Because look what I've done. Look what I do. Look who I am in any given moment when I'm just for myself, and then somebody says, well, that's not good enough, or you have to be for me too, and then suddenly I'm in conflict. So if I'm just for myself, if I'm not for myself, who will be? Because this is the thought that goes through the mind. I get these questions all the time. What are you saying, Guy? You're saying I shouldn't be in the world, shouldn't have, shouldn't, what am I going to do? No, that's the anxiety that comes with that question. Because honestly, I can't help myself. Honestly, I can't help myself. Somehow or other, I'm going to carve out something in this world that when I stand there, people will see me there and they will respect me. By God, they will give me my due. Even if my due is being homeless and being wanted to be recognized for my casting the world away, I still want the recognition. Yes or no? If I'm not for myself, who's going to be? I got to take care of myself. But on the other hand, if that's all I do, what am I? Because if that's all I do, then I'm set against everyone and anything else that wants to be equally important with me. I mean, there's only so much to go around. Do you understand the scarcity idea? So I am two people at once. One is there and I can't deny him. I want to be important. I will do what I need to do to protect whatever it is that I believe makes me important. I will, yes or no? But at the same time that I'm that person and he by and large owns my life, there's another person in there. And that other person that can't do the good that it would, you can't just be like that. Because that's why the world is the way it is. Because everybody's just there for themselves. You can't be like that. So you can't just be for yourself. But I don't know who else to be for. I don't know how how else to live my life other than trying to ensure that what I believe is important about my life remains in place and I'll protect it at all costs. And then he asked this question. Well, if I'm not for myself, who will be? If I'm just for myself, what am I? Then he says, if not now, then when? And what he's doing in that moment with that question is he's saying, if not now, when? What is now that he's talking about? What is this now that he's talking about? He's saying there has to be some moment where I'm not just one or the other, isn't he? If not now, when? So he's saying that there is a moment that is always present of awareness. And awareness is always now, and it's always when it's needed. So that if I'm present enough to this sense of needing to be important, wanting people to see respect, if I'm present to that, here's what I find out. I don't see the pain of that nature when I'm identified with what that nature is pursuing or trying to protect. I know nothing of the pain of that nature. Do you see that? I know nothing of it. What I know is the pain that comes up in it when something threatens it. Then I know that pain, but I never attest the pain to the position of that nature. I attest the pain to a world that's challenging what I am identified with and believe is necessary for me to be who I imagine myself to be. God, this is important. But he's saying, Buddha, Christ, all true teachings are saying there is a place in you, in the moment, at all times, that can be there and recognize that the pain of trying to be just for myself, of proving myself, the pain of that is not serving you and it's not serving anyone else. And that on the other side of that, if I'm just for myself, what am I? Is the awareness I can't be that self. That's what's there, is the awareness I can't be that self, because I can finally see there's nothing in that self other than the pain it's in as it keeps trying to prove to itself that it is as important as it's imagined itself to be. Are you with me? So out of that comes, how do I say this? See, the awareness of something doesn't ask a question. The awareness of something is always a revelation of an interior, invisible form of conflict in this situation. So what it is, if you understand this, I'm just for myself. If I'm not for myself, I have to be for myself. But if I'm just for myself, what am I? How do I know? How do I know? Listen carefully. Which to be? How do I know what the path is in that moment? Here's the answer. It's a question we never consider asking ourselves in the moment where suddenly this anger, this pain, this fear, this anxiety, all the things that listen. It's a question we never, ever ask ourselves. And you must start asking yourself, but not because I'm instructing you to do, but because the awareness allows you to be aware of this question. Is the way I feel right now good for me or not? Is how I feel right now, I'm so defensive, I'm so worried, I'm so nervous, I'm so anxious, I'm so frustrated, I'm so irritated. That awareness, if I can be aware of it, answers how to be for myself and not for myself at the same time. Because, look, can I be for my, you answer this for me as I bring this talk to a close. Is being on fire with anger good for me or bad for me? Out loud. How about having enemies? Is that good for me or bad for me? How about wishing that somehow or other that moment would just go away? Oh, I'm full of resistance. Is that resistance good for me or bad for me? But I never see it. Because all I see is what that consciousness has called into play in order to rescue me from the pain of its own nature. So I have to ask myself as best I can, and this is tough stuff. Here I am, my mind won't set down what you did. It won't let go of this fear of tomorrow where something may take from me what I believe is so critical to my identity. And I'm so used to just running with the bulls, aren't I? Do you know what I mean? I'm just so used to running with it because that's what makes sense to me. I'm for myself. And all of these thoughts and feelings, they're for myself as well. I need to run with them. But I run with them because they're promising to keep intact whatever sense of importance I felt threatened by that moment. What is it like to be like this right now? See, I don't have to think. I can see it. This is terrible. I'm on fire. I'm so afraid. I feel the need to protect myself, and it's driving me crazy because I got to jump through all these hoops to get this done, and so I can go on with my life and stay important and have people see me like that. But if I ask the question, is the way I feel right now good for me or not? And then I stay with that question and see the truth of it. Because if I see the truth that the way I'm feeling right now is not good for me, then I can't tag along with any other thoughts or feelings that come along to justify or to free me from it. Do you understand? Thoughts try to free you from the torment they produce. And because they're promising an escape or a way to keep in place this sense of being important, we just run with it. And I'm saying that if you want to stop running, if you want to stop that insane process by which this consciousness, this institutionalized mind. What was the topic of the talk? Do you remember the title? Escape the invisible prison most people pay to live in. Do you see now what that means? I pay to live in the prison of you seeing me as important. And I pay to live in it by doing everything I have to do to make sure that's never threatened by anything that comes along. So I sell my soul for the sake of an importance that I can never really claim. All I can do is live in the constant conflict when it's threatened by something. The whole point of this talk, as I close it, is just to try to get you to start seeing when you're in pain, instead of letting the pain tell you the path, see the path you got to that you took to get to that pain. Do you understand? We're reversing it. Instead of letting pain tell you the path, let me see the path that got me to this pain. Because if you're there, you'll see, my God, I can't believe I'm irritated by something small like that, or that I'm on fire because of it. And then you'll start seeing, wait a minute, the pain is telling me if I will do something about it, then I'll recapture or regain whatever the pain says was taken from me. And you can't capture or regain what the pain says was taken from you, because all that was taken from you in that moment was the illusion that you were important because of what you were identified with. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
Class today with Guy, and that is an opportunity to have a discussion with him about the material he has presented. As we get settled here, let me just remind you of a couple of upcoming events, and Guy referred to one of them in his talk, and that is our last weekend of wisdom here at the Foundation in December, December 15th through the 17th, a 3-day event. And again, we have been announcing this for the last couple of weeks, but we want to make sure you know you are invited to come join us here live if you can, or online for this special weekend. I'll be talking about the topic that you see below me, to be in the world but not of it. And so 3 special talks and opportunities to talk with Guy, and it's a great opportunity to also visit us if you wish. So put that on your calendar, and if you need any more information, just go to guyfinley.org/weekend, and that will tell you more about it. And there will be emails, and we will keep reminding you of it, but hope to see you here if you can make it. Other events this week, we have still a full week of classes. So on Friday night, after you've enjoyed your Thanksgiving, Friday night, if you're in the area and online, please do join us for our student-led class. We'll be talking about the material that Guy presented on Sunday, and I was just looking at my notes from that class and saw it was a good talk. Guy talked about useless versus useful struggles, and seeing in nature always trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat. So I'd look forward to the discussion that we will be having online there Friday at 7 p.m. And then Saturday, Guy will be speaking, as he always does, at 8 a.m. live on insighttimer.com. And the topic for discussion on Saturday will be a 2-step solution to dissolve any negative reaction.
Outside.
Plenty of chances to keep deepening your understanding and joining us in learning more about these principles. So hope that you'll join us for that. And lastly, please do keep us in mind as an end of the year. If you're interested in helping us pursue our mission, we are a nonprofit organization, and so we gratefully appreciate and accept donations. And if you would like to make a donation to us, just go to guyfinley.org/donate. And there's plenty of information there for you as well. But thank you for your support throughout the years. Gosh, 30 years that we have been pursuing this mission, and we are grateful for your help. All right, that's it for the news and announcements. Let's go back to the main room, and we'll check in with Guy and see if he is ready to get started or if he has anything else to say. So over to you, Guy. Are you ready? Or
I am, for sure. The only one thing that didn't get added to our list that should have been there is this feeling of that somehow or other I am owed whatever it is that I'm owed. Don't you feel like you're owed? And you know, you don't walk around thinking to yourself, I feel like I'm owed. But all that has to happen is a small facial expression, a turn of the face, a little bit of news, something goes, and the next thing you know, I'm sitting here filled with resentment because I am owed your whatever it is that I think I'm owed. All right, anyway, nothing else, John? We're ready to go if there's anywhere to go.
You bet, Guy. I have several written questions, and Billy has raised his hand in the queue, so I'm going to start with Billy. So I'll go to him. Good evening, Billy.
Good evening, Guy. Good evening, John.
Hi, Bill.
Thanks for all your from Down Under.
Yep.
And thanks for everything. Now, the question I have is I asked a question in an email a couple of weeks ago. It's not directly related to the teachings. It's more a question relating to how you deliver the teaching. So I don't know whether you want to take it now or leave it till later, or whether this is a relevant place to ask a question.
Well, you can throw it out there. I don't have to catch it.
Okay, I'll throw it out there. Here it comes. It's in relation to the foundation and the commercials that are set up behind the enterprise. And I noticed that Vernon, when he set his up, was a church-type foundation, which has its pluses and minuses, and yours is a little bit different. It's an educational-type foundation. And I was wondering if that was a deliberate act on your part for specific reasons, or whether it's just like a matter of circumstance that ended up that way. And irrespective of whatever it is that the feedback is in that relation to that, is do you have any advice for anybody that might be thinking of setting up an educational or church-type foundation to deliver material in that respect?
Well, first, Billy, the Life of Learning is exactly the same level of organization that was the foundation that Mr. Howard set up. It's a 501(c)(3). It's considered a religious organization, but under religious organizations there are various classifications, and we never deliberately set ourselves up as an educational foundation, because that actually comes under another whole branch of government. So Life of Learning is considered a non-denominational church, like New Life was when Mr. Howard was alive. And as far as setting something up like that, Billy, do what you think is best. There's no secret to establishing something like that, other than I assume a person, as I did, has to have some form of credence relative to the way the government looks at people. I was a recognized pastor, and so it wasn't difficult to set up the church, set up the foundation. I try to avoid words like church or educational foundation. All of those words are so loaded with the various forms of conditioning that come with them, plus or minus, pro or con, and it's really not important. This foundation is what it seems to be every 3 times a week. So, Billy, that's it. I don't know if that helps or not, but there you go.
All right, Guy, I'll come back on here. I next have a written question that came in from Carl. Carl asked, "This confusion has me paralyzed with life. The dark night, as one would call it, looking out and seeing everything as meaningless, nothing to aim for. I'm trying to have 2 worlds at once, trying to participate in the greater while also trying to amuse the lower. I don't know where to go from here because I still love clearly my lower life. This is crippling me lately."
Nothing is born, Juan, without a struggle. No new life comes into existence without pain. The crucible that a true aspirant lives in is that in his mind or her mind, that person sets out with a longing to somehow or other acquire something that will finally put at rest this dissatisfaction that has gone with them all along the way. Not always evident, but ultimately, inevitably present. Another dissatisfaction, another disappointment, another sense of fear, another worry, another anger, another enemy, another problem. And that those conditions are intrinsic with this broken mind. They're intrinsic to it. And that broken mind cannot heal itself. But within that darkness, Juan, as you well know, there dwells a light, and it won't let you lay down with the things in the dark. Not totally, not at peace. I do it all the time, but I always find myself getting stung or bit or betrayed or lied. Something happens, and I wake up and I go, Jesus, how did I get here again? And that condition, that upheaval, that pain, that stress, that tension, that sheer, ultimately unknowing is where a person like yourself, if you intend to go all the way, meaning achieve a certain extent of liberation while you're in this body, that's just the road. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. I got to go some way, but I don't know what way to go, and I feel like I'm being pulled apart, and then I can't bear it, and then I just plop down someplace, and I don't want anything to do with life. All of those machinations, Juan, are part and parcel to the true aspirant's life. But nobody knows about it, because most of the people that teach in this world lie to you straight through their teeth. But now you're finding out, and I might add, only you can find out, in Juan's life, with what Juan has been given, with what Juan realizes cannot make Juan's life work. All of those things, they're all in this crucible. They all have to be ground up. And that's what life does, is it brings all this into a certain place interiorly, and at some point, and one day, if you persist, Juan, you'll understand why I'm smiling. One day you realize, God, I went through so much for nothing. But I didn't know it was nothing because I was so identified with that. I mean, how can I be identified with if I'm really crippled, meaning I don't know which way to go? If I really reach that point, Juan, is there a struggle anymore? If I really see it, if I really see my mind isn't going to rescue me, if I really see that, can my mind torment me anymore? If I really see that there is something in me that lives in order to be recognized, or that lives to be realized according to whatever it says realization, if I really see that all of that's sheer nonsense and the actual source of my suffering by comparison, then when it surfaces, there's nothing for me to do. And then I enter into being instead of doing. Becoming disappears. And that's all in levels and scale, one. So for what it's worth, you're in the right place going through the right thing. Stay close. Over to you, John.
All right, Guy, our queue is wide open, so I invite again our people joining us on GoToWebinar. If you want to talk directly to Guy, just click the hand icon, and students in the room, you may also just walk up to the mic. I do have a couple of other written questions, so here's one, Guy, that came in from Jill tonight. Jill says, "Hi, Guy, I had an experience with my coworker. She did something I didn't like. I became very upset. I was ready to attack her with so much anger, but I stopped. Guy, I didn't want to stop. It was the worst feeling I've ever felt, to stop and not release my anger. I was so glad that I didn't release it, though, but it keeps happening. I want to yell and scream at everyone or myself. Can you offer any words of encouragement?"
Don't miss the December talks, but I'll hint at that again. So here this person was unkind or cruel or insulting. They're toxic. And they've done something that's an affront. If I'm not for myself, who's going to be? If I don't stand up for myself in this situation, I mean, they're going to walk all over me for the rest of my life. Yada, yada, yada. On the other hand, if I'm just for myself, meaning if all I want to do is get rid of this pain and punish you, if I'm just for myself, what am I? What am I? What am I if I want to hurt another human being? See, this is the problem where words break down. What am I if I want to hurt another human being? What am I if I want to make you see where you're wrong? What am I? But to not do that means I'm not for myself. If not now, when? Because that's what Jill's describing. I couldn't be just for myself, and I couldn't bear the pain of considering what it would be like not to do that. And there I was, right in the middle, where my refusal to acknowledge and identify with the parts of myself that wanted to punish did not free me from the pain, but if anything, exacerbated it, so that suddenly I was aware of how much pain there was. And instead of letting that pain be spilled out and spewed out, I bore it myself. I discovered something about myself. Because ordinarily I never see that there's some middle ground, that this relationship between these active and passive forces produces a third force, a third intelligence, that if I sit in that light, I don't have to do anything because it automatically dismisses the unconscious dark action as it encouraged me to stay in that place where I begin to see what I've never seen before in my life about myself and why these relationships go on and on and on with my enemies. You want to know to whatever extent you are waking up as a human being? It is to the extent that you are free of any enemy in your life at all, whether they abused you as a child or you imagine they're going to do it downstream. Love thine enemies, Christ said. Oh, that you could understand what that means, but I'm giving you a hint. Loving your enemies doesn't mean loving the person that you blame for your pain. Loving your enemy means that you realize what produces that enemy and the part of you that wants to keep it in place, and that you die to yourself. And when you die to yourself, you die to your enemies. When you die to yourself, you die to your past. And that's the only place that you have enemies. Because what we call an enemy is anyone or anything that challenges something that I'm identified with, that threatens me. And then you realize the only thing that can threaten me that way is something that I'm identified with from the past, and it is brought into the present moment, and it lives again at my expense. Stay with it, Joe.
All right, Guy, I have a written question from Frida that I think we can all relate to. She says, hello, Guy. Lately, all I've been doing is thinking about all I have to do, and your head is full of it, and it makes you tired. What I also saw is that it is the same if you think you can handle everything. Everyone is complaining, I'll do it. It's the same thing. Get out of the way and let God as you will. Is that right? Thanks, Frida.
Did that get posted, Kate?
I just sent it to you.
Well, I just don't know what's going on with our little deal. I'm looking at all you sent me, the Carl, all that.
I'll send it in the chat area, go to webinar.
Okay. There it is. It just came up in the right area. Some days are diamonds, some days are stones. Hello, Guy. Lately, all I've been doing is thinking of all I have to do, and your head is full of it and it makes you tired. But I also saw that it is the same if you think you can handle everything. Everyone is complaining, I'll do it. It's the same thing. Get out of the way and let God as you will. Is that right? So look, everybody loves the idea. Let go and let God. That's beautiful, isn't it? Until until suddenly I've got something has its claws in me, or I have my claws in something. I don't mind explaining this again. Frida. If you were somewhere visiting South Africa, and I'm putting this to the people in the room too, and you got out of your vehicle somewhere on the plane and wandered off like you weren't supposed to do, and all of a sudden you hear these noises, and you see a cloud of dust, and OMG, here comes like 8,000 giant Cape buffalo, and they're running right in my direction. Do you stand there and go, oh my God, why is this happening to me? B, do you think to yourself, I hate Cape buffalo? Or C, you realize that you're about to get trampled, and the only thing for you to do is to get the heck out of the way. Which is it? And there's no multiple choice. Get out of the way. Now, do I need God to get out of the way? Please, I'm asking you, let go and let God. So what that's saying is, here I am, and I'm being trampled. So do I let go and let God? No. What you do is you see how ungodly it is to stand there and hate the condition that doesn't exist apart from your own insistence that somehow or other that not happen to you. That's what I was explaining in the talk, if you have a chance, Frida, to listen to it. Is what I'm feeling right now right or wrong for me? And there's no answer other than this is right or this is wrong. Not, well, look, I know this is wrong for me, but if I don't do something about it, I'm going to go to hell in a handbasket. Leave it as it is. This is wrong for me. And if it's wrong for me, then anything that has given me the feeling that I have to fight with this is also wrong for me, because it's coming from the same level of consciousness that put me there in the path of those 800,000 Cape buffalo. Do you understand? Yes or no? Yes. Say it out loud so Frida knows. Yes. Does that mean you're going to get out of the way? That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's extraordinary. I know so much, and yet I have all these hoof marks on my back all the time. It's extraordinary, but you don't see it yet. How can I be run over by my own thoughts and feelings? How is that even remotely possible? And the answer is because when I hear them coming, when I'm starting to feel the pressure or the pain of all the things to do or whatever else is going on, I don't know, I can't even begin to suspect for a moment that my perception of that experience is inseparable from the consciousness that is put there so that then it can fight with whatever it says is pushing it around. Just get out of the way. But here's what happens. I can't get out of the way because it's too important for me to stay there and deal with what I have to deal with. And then I blame buffalo. It is that simple. You'll see it one day. Your mind is just too busy. Just talk. 7:30, John, is there anything else to do?
Yes, Guy, one final question, and then we could end with this.
All right.
It came in from Mary, and she says, hello, Guy. It seems that being free from our own thoughts that are trying to keep in place the image of ourselves requires immense inner strength, as that image as we see it is the sum of all the principles and values we hold for ourselves and live by daily. By doing nothing about others' reactions, that is also a reaction.
If a parent allows his child to disrespect him, the child is trained that it's okay to behave that way. This is the same for a spouse, a coworker, or a friend. This freedom of our relationship with the moment seems to be a personal one, and even if we attain it, practical results may be opposite of the desired ones. So how do we draw that line and allow the interpersonal boundaries, not for the sake of our image, but of actual self-respect and functional relationships?
Mary, you don't have even the foggiest idea what self-respect is. No one who hates another human being or who resents someone or who wants to criticize and correct someone or who sits and judges themselves painfully for missing the mark. Nobody who does that knows anything about what real self-respect is. And the thing that's so difficult, Mary, and I can only hope that you're still listening to me, is that you start this question with an assumption that is wrong to begin with. Your assumption is, he says, it seems that being free of our own thoughts that are trying to keep us in place requires immense inner strength. It requires no strength at all, Mary, to be free. None. We find inner strength when we finally start to understand that what we have called strength is weakness. The strength of this assumption about how I should treat the boundaries and all that business. You know, this mind makes everything so complex because it calls on this body of associations through education that don't do anything but keep in place the content of that consciousness in this strange, bubbling cauldron of always competing thoughts and feelings, so that I don't know whether to turn left or right when things are going on, because all I know to do is to go back into the source of my suffering and hope that it can explain to me how to stop it. And it can't. And when you see that all of this mental mumbo jumbo, I know, you can imagine having a PhD in something, and I hear this man who owns a Bi-Mart card, say mumbo jumbo. It's mumbo jumbo. It's the love of feeling important as I talk to myself about what I know is important and what I have to do to ensure that everything remains the same. And as far as the adult that lets a child get away with murder, of course that man or woman is training that child to do that. You don't need an education to recognize that being permissive with anything that is destructive is in fact encouraging that person to take the next destructive act. That doesn't take a genius. You don't need a psychological degree. But what you do need is to see that there are many parts of us that when people do things like that to us, rather than do what we know is true because we see it's wrong, we will, for the sake of remaining important in their eyes, sell ourselves so they continue to like us. That's what you need to see. Because all of it's very clear cut. That's what I love about the truth. When you see something, you don't think to yourself whether you saw it or not. When you see the truth of something, there it is. And the truth, for the moment that appears, is a shock to the system that vacillates through comparison. And in the moment of that shock, if you can stay there long enough, I just decided what I'm going to talk about Sunday. If you can stay long enough in that light, in that shock, it will give you everything you need to do and to be. And you know what it is that you need to do and be? You need to sit there right in the middle of those opposites and let everything that's playing out show you what the action is to be taken. Not you taking action to keep what's important in place, but you living for what is important, which is the revelation of that consciousness. Good night.